Welcome everyone to the Electrical Culture of Safety Livewire program, where we delve into all the complexities of creating a culture of safety within the electric utility industry. In each episode, we feature interviews with subject matter experts, industry leaders, safety professionals, and field personnel from across the industry, where we discuss ways to develop a collective reflection of the perception, attitudes, and shared experiences of the safety culture within our industry. Welcome to ECOS Livewire.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Electric Culture of Safety line team. We have special guests here aboard. You've recognized this voice if, as far as the introduction. If you've listened to these Livewire stories for any amount of time at all, and you'll recognize that the voice is Mr. Mike Bahr. He actually helped co-hosted together these Livewire stories back over a year ago. So it's been I haven't seen him for a while, and he's been super busy. But let me read you his biography. Our special guest here, Mr. Mike Bahr. He's been a safety professional in the electrical industry for over 30 years. After being injured in an electrical accident in 1985, Mike has dedicated his career to the safety profession. Mike has presented safety training worldwide and has developed a reputation for being one of the best safety trainers in the electric power industry. Mike is a former principal member of the NFPA 70E committee, Standard for Electrical Safety in Workplaces. Mike also served as the principal investigator for the development of the Department of Energy Electrical Safety Program. Mike is currently Vice President of Safety for Gridstone Holdings, LLC. So there you go. So Mike's been around for quite some time. And Michael, come on aboard, man. You well?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah, life is good. Yeah, been busy.
Right.
Been busy. I've missed doing these podcasts. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll get back into it full time. But yeah,
that would be great. Well, we got your voice still, and appreciate that, man.
Yeah. I'll send you the invoice for that. So you can. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So several years ago, I don't know how long it's been, maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. I first met you initially online. You were setting up some webinars and doing some YouTube videos, which were excellent for linemen take a stand for safety, right?
I dove into that a few years ago, started making some videos, put up a YouTube channel, and did some TikToks and some other things. It was fun. And I'm sure we'll get into this a bit. And mainly what was driving me to do that was, continuing to see the almost weekly, posts and reports of another either serious accident or a fatality. And so, I decided to start making some things and some videos and talking about some stuff. And I kept that up for a while, and I think I put out some good content. But, like anything else, it's those things are hard to continue with sometimes, because you feel like, you want to feel like what you're doing is making a difference, and I got some thoughts about that as we get down the road here. But you see a lot of people doing a lot of different things and a lot of ideas, and and it's the same thing over and over again. We're still having a fatality every 10 days. It's nothing seems to change. And since we last talked, and since I did my presentation for you out in South Carolina, I've changed my views a little bit.
Interesting.
Several things, and
Mm-hmm.
and some of the thoughts that I have, I may not be able to share publicly because they might be a little controversial. But because sometimes I can get a little blunt, and I've got some, I don't know, man. Things just don't seem to be changing much, no matter what we do, no matter how much training is going on, no matter how many people are out there saying, well, if you just did this, right, you could change, and I think I've mentioned this to you. I did a couple of podcasts here a while back with some other people, and I've been doing this for 50 years now. And somebody asked me on one of the podcasts, Mike, from when you started to now, what can you say has changed, right? And thinking about that, my answer was really nothing. We have better equipment, we have better training, we got all the PPE we need, we got good equipment, we have everything we need, but yet it continues, right? And so I've kind of changed a little bit in some of my philosophies, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. I'll let you kind of guide me where you want us to go.
Okay. No, that sounds fair, Mike. So the company you're with, you're around a lot of different contractors. That's all I'll say about that. So you see a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different training techniques, and adherence to a safety culture differing in many ways. What do you see as far as, like, we talk about standards and we talk about rules and regulations, and it's like consensus should be similar, but I'm sure from your travels that you're seeing things that actually are not so similar.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Everybody, there are, I see a lot of different cultures out there. And so one thing that I think really messed our industry up, and still does to this day, is the focus on the TRIR, the total recordable injury rate. OSHA came up with that formula years ago, right? And so that's been the standard. So when a contractor goes to bid work, obviously they're asked to provide typically 3 to 5 years of their total recordable injury rate, and which in reality, Brent, tells you nothing about this, about their culture. That's in the past. That's all in the past, right? And a lot of those injuries, recordables that come up, of course, are and don't get me wrong here, I'm not trying to minimize any injuries, right? But you sprained ankles, we cut a finger and get some stitches, and so you get especially with the small contractor that has a very small number of hours, and you get 2 or 3 recordables, and man, you're screwed. All of a sudden you've got a TRIR of 3 or a 4, right? So you can't get work. So what does that do? It drives us to not report. We get into this culture of not reporting, right? And so this zero injury philosophy that our industry adopted 30 years ago just doesn't work. Never has worked. And this whole focus of total recordable injury should be abandoned as far as I'm concerned. It should not be the matrix that we
Mhm.
determine, if a company is a safe contractor or not. It's just not a good snapshot. So, and there's a lot of people trying to change that, to
Mhm.
change uh, philosophy. So, and of course, that's where the capacity model and sticky and everything else is coming in. I learned very early on, and that while again we want to prevent every injury, of course.
Mhm.
Um, Focusing on that total recordable injury rate, I think, is a huge mistake. Always has been, but it's going to take a long time for that to evolve, and for people to get away from that. One of our companies, small contractor, bid some work here a while back, and we had a total recordable injury rate at the time over a 3-year period of about 2.8, and we got rejected. We were not able to bid work, and very small number of hours.
Mhm.
And one of them happened to be, I think one of them was a strained shoulder. The other one there was one, I think, was a finger that got caught. And I think it might have, anyways, a couple of fairly minor injuries. But because of the number of hours, it put us into that. And this company that we were bidding work for, their barrier was a 2.0 or higher for a total recordable injury rate. So we were not able to bid work with these, even though a couple of the jobs we bid, we were low bid and probably would have been the best contractor for them, but we couldn't bid the work. So anyway, that's some things that I'm trying to work towards, is for people to better understand that the sticky hazards are really what we need to be focused on. We want people to go home safe. We want people to go home intact. And the stuff that will kill you is really what should be our main focus.
Yeah, you brought up that TRIR, and how that drives us as we use that, like you said, as far as our matrix, how it drives us in our industry not to report. So we're not being totally honest and open. I personally know a few, and I'll just leave it at that, a few situations that took place, pretty decent injuries, and the company went to their people and said that, we'll take care of it, but we don't want it recorded. We'll take care of operations. We'll take care of all the bills, but we just don't want to record it.
Right.
One instance, after the 6-year, statutes of limitations, the day after the 6 years was up, one of the gentlemen was immediately fired.
Really?
Yeah. And of course, no proof. So, it's all hearsay. But anyways, so that recordable injuries, that is interesting. And you brought that up as far as your philosophy changing, that we need to, as this has been driving us, maybe we need to think about how can we steer away from that as being something of contention.
Yeah. Well, a lot of companies out there are working very hard to move away from this, zero injury philosophy. And of course, I'll mention, some. I think I'm fine. Quanta, of course, is one of the big players here that has is working very hard to adopt. They've taken the sticky model and they've done a lot of great work. Quanta's done a great job, and they basically have turned it in what they call the capacity model, which basically is the same as sticky, and it simply means that there's going to be failures. Things are not always going to go according to plan. But are your systems able to absorb that failure? Can you fail safely? And that's what it means to develop this capacity model. That people have to be able to think ahead enough to especially when it comes to the sticky model, the things that will kill you, and which typically means your electrical and your fall and you're caught between and struck by, all those things that contribute to that serious or fatal injury. And my belief is, Brent, if we can get these guys to focus on the sticky hazards, that a lot of the other stuff is going to take care of itself. Are we going to be able to totally eliminate all injuries? Absolutely not. And I've never really been one of those people that believe that would, everybody, all accidents are preventable. Well, yeah, maybe. But is it realistic to believe that they truly are? No, it's not. Another thing, and one of the things, and maybe this might be one of those areas that people might find a little bit uncomfortable, or, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking about these 30 to 40 fatalities that we have, or 60 SIFs that we have, So I sat down and I just did some simple math. And believe me, this is it's anecdotal. It's not, but let's say you have 100,000 linemen, and those 100,000, I think we have maybe 120, 130 linemen in the country right now. So let's say we got 100,000 of these guys, and they get exposed to a sticky hazard once a day. Okay. So once a day, they have an exposure to a hazard that if they, cross that boundary and they get, have an encounter with that hazard, they could be seriously injured. So that's 100,000 exposures per day, right? To a risk, and you multiply that by 7, right? Or 5 for a week, right? And then multiply that by 52. The point I'm trying to make is we have these guys are exposed to millions of sticky hazards in any given year. Millions, right? So what do? We end up with 60 SIFs out of these million exposures. Now, maybe this is not, but the point I'm trying to make is we do a lot of things right in our industry.
We do. That's right.
We have extremely well equipped and trained people, and most of the time they do everything right. If we didn't have such a highly trained and equipped workforce, we'd have many more of these than we have. Right. Now, not to say that these 60 SIFs are acceptable. I'm not saying that. But when you compare this to other industries, there are other industries out there that are even worse than ours. So the point I'm making is, somehow, obviously, and people have been trying to figure this out, Brent, for my whole career. How do you fix these 60? And the question is, can you? Are we doing, and again, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we are. I'm not trying to lead anybody down any paths here other than the fact that, sometimes I get on some of these forums and I read about it, and people are, it's almost like it's out of control. It's just, and again, it's too many. We should be able to prevent every single one of these SIFs. We really should. But it takes individual responsibility, and that's where I think some of this stuff is where, I don't know. I'm as frustrated as anybody, when I see the new post of a new fatality. And yeah, so I don't know, Brent. I wish I had the answer. And yeah.
And the way your frustration, Mike, you had the frustration in your voice when I first met you, and you were coming on that lineman take a stand for safety. Your posts and everything, and you said the question, and it deserves to be looked at, and we need to identify what's in this question and go over it together in our heads and with one another. But you said, can we fix this? And I've been in the industry for going on 12 years now, and that's the question. Can we fix this? Because
exactly,
really, I haven't, like you said, you haven't seen much change. We're getting more sophisticated. We're getting more rules, more regulations, more check boxes. But is that fixing it?
Well, exactly. And again, I ask people this question all the time. Is this the best we're ever going to get? Are we at that point? I don't believe we are, Brent, by any means. But I don't know because back in 1994, when 1910-269 came in, right? And we started to implement that standard and the rules of that standard, things changed. The number of fatalities came down and it plateaued, right? So then they do a revision, right? And it may have changed a little bit, but not that much, right? And we've just kind of plateaued, and it's been the same for quite a while now. And one of the things that shows me, so 1994, what happens? We get a requirement that everybody does a job briefing before we go to work. If there's any hazards, right? We have to identify the hazard and we do a job briefing. We've had, I think we're up to over reported that we know of. I think we're right around 30 fatalities for the year, almost 60 SIFs.
Yeah.
60 incidents and 30 fatalities. So, and I know that's not all of them. There are others. I know of one in particularly that happened a few weeks ago that didn't pop up on the social media. So, but anyway, every single job this year where we had a SIF, a job briefing was performed before those guys went to work. But the problem is, and again, I don't want to get on my soapbox too much here. Companies have we've introduced this form, and it's become more of a compliance issue than it really from what it was intended to do. Right. I was on a job out in Michigan a few weeks ago, and I went out to look at some crews, and I come up to the job, and the work that they were doing, they were actually finished with the job, and they were sitting in the pickup, right? So I pulled up and I got out. We were talking, and the foreman who's in the pickup hands me the clipboard that's got the job briefing on it, and he wants my signature.
After
the job's done.
Yeah.
There was no, he didn't give me a job briefing, but but he wanted my signature.
Wow.
Right? Because that's what we trained these guys to do. That the form is a cover your butt.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Right.
so. That's just one issue. It's just one of the issues that I see out there. But and we've talked a little bit about that. That's sometimes I get really frustrated when I go to some of these conferences and I hear these people talking about all the ways that we can fix this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it was that easy, we'd be able to fix it.
Yeah. So Michael, were you involved in the 2004 T&D OSHA partnership?
I was I was working for Quan at the time when that was back in 2004, and I was on the committee that reviewed all the data.
Yeah.
And we went in and we looked at boxes and boxes of all the data. That was back where a lot of the stuff hadn't been captured yet digitally. And some had, but we went through essentially every fatality that OSHA had recorded in our industry from the beginning to 2004.
Yeah.
And we come up with some pretty interesting findings. And basically, I still have our report here somewhere in the PowerPoint. But anyway, basically what we found, and again, nothing's changed since all this. But basically what we found, Brent, we didn't find not a single accident or incident that we believed was a training issue.
Yeah, right.
We never found a single solitary incident where we believed that PPE was at fault, other than not wearing it.
Yeah, yeah.
We never found it. It was everything we found. It wasn't policy. It wasn't PPE. It wasn't training. It wasn't any of that. It was all just simple violation of MAD, not wearing fall protection, whatever it was. It wasn't attributed to policy and training and equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you talked about that in one of your videos, and it was super interesting that you were doing this. Now, from my understanding, approximately 50% of the fatalities were electrocution. Is that correct, Mike? About 50% electrocution.
Oh, more. If I could probably, it was at the time, if I remember right, and I could pull my PowerPoint up here and look at it, but it seems to me, Brand, if I remember right, there were 500 and just over 500 fatalities during, what we looked at.
Yes, that's right.
And 370 of them were contact. Somewhere in that range. So the majority is contact. Majority. So there were some falls. Obviously that was back before we had 100% attachment rules. And so there were falls. There were, but yeah, the majority of this stuff was definitely contact, right?
So let me ask you a question as far as the wording. Average speaking, an average incident regarding contact. I know that a lot of these reports are fairly simple and kind of short, honestly. because all the check boxes are made. So basically, in essence, they say Johnny made contact, and
Yeah,
and I mean, like, short and sweet, right?
very short. Right. And yeah, you mean as far as the OSHA
Yeah,
report?
the report. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd read that, and yes, even today, when you go in now,
Mhm.
there are ways to get more information from OSHA, but
Mhm.
you've got to. A lot of the stuff is kept from the general public. There are the initial report and the investigation, and the outcome is public record, but it's very brief, right?
Mhm.
But you can tell a lot from the violation, right? So it might say lineman made contact with overhead line, and then you start looking at the violations, and it might say failure to wear rubber goods or gloves, sleeves, whatever. So you can tell a lot from the actual citations sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot there. There really isn't. But that used to bother the heck out of me, Brent.
Mhm.
I used to get on. You get on. Linemen take a stand for safety, and you see that there's a new fatality, but there's nothing there. And it used to bug the hell out of me. I used to think, I want more. I want more. But then, I started to realize, does it really matter? Because yes, it would be good to know if it's contact, if it's a fall, but really, when it comes down to it, why does it matter? We all know what we're supposed to do. Why does it
Right.
matter if somebody made contact? We already should be doing everything we can do so that we don't make contact. Whether it's we got our cover up or our gloves and sleeves, or whether we just got whatever it is.
Mhm.
Having somebody fail over here not doing that shouldn't be changing what I'm already supposed to be doing. If it takes a fatality for a company to go, oh shit, well, I guess we better start wearing our gloves and sleeves. So I've kind of changed my view on that a bit. It shouldn't really matter.
And typically, no, it shouldn't. And typically, it's our culture, it's our environment overall. As far as rubber goods, as far as fall restraint, as far as the MAD, all these things. And like you said, the training's there, the proper equipment's there. It's typically in great shape.
Right.
Every once in a while, you'll see it lanyard with some fuzz on it, or a rope with too many hairs sticking out of it,
Right.
which shouldn't, or a belt that's maybe not in such good shape.
Right.
But typically, everything's good as far as the organization supplying the training and the equipment. But why is this happening? So they have it all. So the root cause, man, I totally believe that a lot of what we're being told what the root cause is actually is not the root cause.
Well, root cause is very subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's like I can't tell you how many reports I've seen where the root cause turns out to be complacency. That's what everything falls into this complacency, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. I hate the word complacency. I'm not a big fan of, well, it's just ridiculous. It's a cop out to say that it's complacency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what happens, Brent. We have an industry that, rather than trying to figure out why this guy did what he did, we do what's called addition. We have addition bias, right? Which means, what do? We just stack another rule up, right? We start putting more rules in place.
Yeah.
And so we didn't figure out why this guy did what he did. But now we've just made it a little bit tougher for the guys. We got to add some more steps to this. We got to, when in reality, Brent, we have all the regulations we need. You know,
right.
We don't need more rules. Every rule that we have, or every hazard that we have, you know, we've already got something that if followed, you know, it's not like we have something happen and we all throw our hands up in the air and go, damn, we didn't see that coming, right? Because everything that's happening, there's no mystery to it. There's no, you know, it's just, we have this there's too many times in our industry where people don't follow the rules and we get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, we get away with not wearing those sleeves or gloves or putting up that just one more piece of hose, right? And there's no negative consequence, right? And so the results, some people would say, is complacency, right? And again, I'm not a big fan of that word. You can call it what you want. We don't get complacent, we get comfortable, right? We get comfortable working in city because we've gotten away from it, away with it so many times. And so, and not only do we have addition bias in our industry, but we have this bias that we believe that it will never happen to us.
Correct.
And it'll never happen to my crew. And yeah, and it sneaks up and bites you in the rear end.
Yeah. So with that mindset, that environmental mindset, as far as the consciousness, when we believe, I mean, think about that, Michael. If we believe that nothing's going to happen to us today, not on my crew, no way. How do we even predict? How do we mitigate? How do we eliminate? How do we substitute on the hierarchy of controls if we have the first hierarchy of control at the very top is our own brain telling us that, hey, it's not going to happen. So why bother with elimination and mitigation, and why bother with substitution? It ain't going to happen.
See, and that's what I'm trying to teach my guys. I'm trying to make them understand that when you've got sticky hazards involved, you have to assume that today is going to be that day. Today is the day that the crap is going to hit the fan. And so you have to, and if you go into this task anticipating that contact is going to be made, or that, you know, equipment is, whatever it is, you know, if you address that and build in that capacity to fail, you know, because if you can't anticipate the failure, you can't plan for it. Right. You know, if you simply you can't even comprehend that stuff's going to go sideways today. Yeah. You can't plan for it. You can just check the boxes like we always do. We just check the boxes.
Yeah. So, you know, stuff that kills you, you know, how do we talk about, say, for instance, the energy wheel with the 10 elements, the sources of power and energies that can kill you? How do we talk about those and identify those as far as risks and hazards during the job brief? I mean,
we got to get away from the check, you know. I'm fine with all the check, but I get all that, you know, we're just trying to, you know, but I've got one of our companies, they work for one of their clients. They require them to use their job briefing form, and it's 4 pages long.
Wow.
Now, how can you do an effective job briefing? So what I've done is I'm trying to take all that noise away. I'm saying, okay, guys, go do your 4-page job briefing, do all that stuff. And then before you go to work, you guys need to gather around, and you need someone in this group. It's got to be a group discussion. Are there sticky hazards? Do we have a sticky hazard list? And if the answer is yes, then I've got like 3 or 4 other questions that they go through, and make sure that everybody is on board with that they've properly done that. Take all that other noise away.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell them, this does not have to be a documented part of this job briefing. This is just you guys making sure
That's right.
that you are addressing the crap that's going to kill you today. You know, and if you'll do that, I guarantee you're all going home tonight.
Yeah.
Just tell yourself, this is not happening to us today.
That's right. That's right. And discuss it. Say that.
Yeah.
You know, and give, and when you say that it's not going to happen to us today, why? Why is it not going to happen?
Exactly.
How is it not going to happen?
And that's that's the 4 questions that I have that I've put on everybody's job briefing, aside from the regular job briefing. This is what you do.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. What is it we're doing to make sure we all get home tonight? You know, and take all that clutter away from that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, that's interesting. The stuff that kills you. One of the trainings I do is called Your Electric Reality, and I call sticky. I renamed it the stuff that kills you, which is 10 elements according to the energy wheel. Is I brought in the 11th element, which is people. So and I call it in the energy wheel reinvented, and I call it solo thinking kills you. And it's when we're not thinking with a team mentality and watching out for our brothers and sisters, and not just talk about it, but we live it. And when we start getting that complacency a different way. In other words, not complacency on the things that kill you, but complacency on solo thinking kills you. Where we're not focusing in on each other, we're focusing on, oh, I have a debt. Oh, I'm getting a new house today. I got to sign the papers right after work, and it's going to be my very, very first house. I'm really excited. It's for my wife. I mean, it can be a positive thing that makes you have solo thinking. It can be a positive thing. It could be a negative thing, but it's that complacency that draws you away from, I'm going to be my brothers and sisters keeper. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. By the way, I found my slide with the stats for the, you know, when I did when we started the partnership, and there were 496 fatalities total. Contact with energized conductors, 303. So out of the 496, 303 of those were contact. Falls from elevation, 77. Flash burns, 52. Which in reality, the flash burns were caused by a contact. So we could roll those back up in there. Struck by 34, caught in between 30. So again, you know, most of what we have going on is contact still today. Yeah. But I think we're on to something, Brent, as an industry, trying to move into that. I just wish more people would try to implement, you know, and even if you don't do the full energy bill, you know, because there's a lot of stuff on there that may not apply to every company, right? And so what we've tried to do is kind of unclutter that a bit. And we've tried to include the icons on our job briefing form when we get to the sticky discussion that mainly apply to our industry, you know.
Yeah.
And so we tried to unclutter that just a little bit. But either way, I don't care how you do it, you know. It's what we need to be focusing on. And
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, man, Mike, nice. This has been really exciting. So what are you thinking? So right now you're working with this company and doing your thing. What are you thinking as far as, you're going to pull back a little bit? What are you thinking as far as Mike Bahr in a couple of years? How do you see, you have so much to give back? How do you see yourself? What areas are you thinking about?
Well, obviously, it depends. I just turned 70, and I keep telling myself I need to just stop and just go play, right? And I love to play. We rode motorcycles for years, and now we're into the side by sides. By the way, I just bought a new. We had a Razor for a while, and they're fun, but they're dusty, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sandy would get all choked up from all the dust and stuff. So I bought a new fully enclosed Ranger Extreme Duty. It's got a full cab. It's got air conditioning and heat in it, and
wow,
power windows, and so
Man.
it's kind of so we're doing a lot of that. And I keep telling myself I just need to stop everything and go do it. But I've tried it twice. I've tried to just shut everything down, and I've not been able to figure out a way to do that because there's a lot for us to do,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I'm not pretending to have all the answers, because I don't. None of us do. But I feel like the more people we can reach, and we're not going to reach everybody. We're not, I go out and teach classes, and you've always got those one or two guys in the class that just, you're just not going to connect with them.
Right. That's right.
They already feel like they have all the answers. Nothing's ever happened to me. Nothing's ever happened to my crew. And they might be doing everything right. I'm not here to say they're not, but we can all do better,
Yeah. Yeah. That's just, you bring up that guy in the back of the class and, not really paying attention and connecting, that kind of culture spreads like wildfire. And I've seen that happen. It spreads like wildfire.
Yeah,
and it's such a horrible example.
Yeah. Especially when the guy sitting in the back is a general foreman, right? And he's walking out, and as they're walking out through the parking lot, and he's got all his guys around him, and he says, yeah, this training was crap, right?
Yeah.
It's done,
I know.
So
It's
it's hard. It is. And again, I get asked this all the time. What are we missing? What do we do? What do we need to do? And you go again, and I'm not picking on anybody, and I don't want to, because I go down to these conferences, and sometimes I get really frustrated with some of these conferences because everybody's got all these bright ideas about, this is what you need to tell your guys. This is what you need to do. And if you'd only do this, and if you'd only do that, and we got to change the way people have been talking like this for 40 years, and these are all smart people, and they all mean well, but it doesn't seem, and that doesn't get to the masses either,
No.
So I don't know, Brent. I don't know.
kind of cognitive overload. I mean, we've got so many charts, we got so many graphs, we've got so many stats, we've got leading, we've got lagging, we've got all these indicators. We've got, we can measure it this way. And I tell you what, all these things, I think I'm going to be a little, maybe a little more bold than you are, but I think some of it is honestly propaganda, and it's
no question.
And by causing the propaganda, we're not looking at the true root cause, to me, that I've seen out in the industry. You talked about contact. Here's a good example, Mike. You talked about contacts, right? 303 of the fatalities were by contacts. But how many of those, let's do a full circle there. How many of those contacts that were made do you believe that it's very possible and measurable and quantifiable that there was a lack of contact within the crew members? See what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought. Obviously, there was a disconnect somewhere, right?
That's what I'm saying.
And again, and I'm a little bit timid about even, a lot of people don't like to hear this, and I don't know if this is true or not, but are we as good as we're ever going to be? I hope not. I hope that's not the case. But again, people have been giving us the answers to fix this, for as long as I've been doing it. But the numbers stay flat.
Yep.
Same thing. Yeah.
So we keep, like Billy Martin talks about, we keep looking downstream for the answers, and we're not pointing upstream.
Right.
So, and I think that's an interesting take, personally. Yeah, man. So everything was awesome, Mike. It's so good to see you, and knowing that Sandy's doing well and you're doing well, and you guys are out. What are you going to start at, like a elk guiding, coming to business and throw the elk in the back of your Honda vehicle?
No.
Or what are you doing?
We just go out and putt around the mountains. So try not to drive it off the side of the mountain, which I'll tell you at another time. We almost did the first time we took it out.
Wow.
Almost backed right off the side hinge. 12,000 feet in the air. So,
oh my gosh.
But
that's scary.
No, I plan to stay engaged. I'm going to stay with the company I'm with for at least another year, maybe a little longer.
Okay.
I may be with them. Who knows? I've got an option to. It's just sometimes I feel like I'm out of gas. And but then other times I get energized. This stuff energizes me. I could talk about this stuff for hours.
Yeah. No, you're always.
As you know, I can be a little opinionated. I've kind of held back today, right? So
you did awesome, man. You did awesome. And I know you're holding back too. I can feel it.
I can really unload, but I'm in my old age. I'm starting to try to dial that back in a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's.
I wish we could do better. Obviously.
Yeah.
One last thing, Brent, that I want to address, because I know you're probably you need to go home. You're going to get in trouble.
I'm getting ready to, Matt.
So, whenever something happens, we have a fatality. You can go to the Reddit forums, and inevitably, I will see the guys, linemen, getting on these forums, and they start talking about, well, this happened because the company has crappy management. They do this, that. None of this, as far as I'm concerned, is because of the company. Right now, Now, let me take that back. I'm not saying it's not, but my point is, these guys they know what happens if you make contact with the conductor, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have the PPE, they have the fall protection equipment, they have everything they need, and mostly, I say there'd be very few exceptions that they haven't been trained properly.
Mm-hmm.
It happens, and they blame it on the company.
Right.
Nobody wants to take that personal responsibility as a crew, as a foreman, or as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it comes down to. You are the last one to have the hands on it. You're the last one to have that chain of thought go through your mind on what got you where you're at, what you're about to do, and what the potential outcome is. It's just you.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
That's perfect, Mike. Well, brother, appreciate your words of wisdom and what you bring to the industry. And you might be 70, but it looks like a young 70. So I appreciate you.
You can see I've got my winter coat going here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike. And tell Sandy hi for us. And
you do the same thing.
I know your live wire story is going to influence a lot of folks for many, many years, and appreciate you being here, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
See ya.